talking to an empty room. So, but yeah, so I do appreciate you all joining us. This is a topic that I think is still hugely relevant, at least for no other reason than to have a conversation about it. I know that a couple of years ago, I was speaking at another casino panel, another casino event, and there was actually an entire track on the metaverse. There were all sorts of conversations about investment, deals getting done, and then you sort of had this moment where it just fizzled out almost overnight. So I think there's still a lot going on, except that it's going on behind the scenes. There's still a huge industry there. And so I do think that definitely warrants an ongoing conversation. With that, I'm joined by my three panelists here today. I'll go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Gabriel Rangel, Chief Technology Officer of the Inland Empire Regional Chamber of Commerce. The background is 18 years at NASA, having worked in 3D modeling and some of these early kind of experiences, and then went out to industry 5 years to include companies like Comcast, Amazon Web Services, and NBC Universal, and advising on some startups. So happy to be here and chat about the metaverse now and in the future.
Louis Alfieri with Regenstein Creative. We're an experiential design and consulting firm working in physical and digital experiences all around the world. We've had the good fortune to work on major mixed-use destinations in China, Korea, Saudi Arabia, North America, and currently working on some very exciting, innovative physical projects around the world. Actually, Heather's participating on one of the projects we have in development, and it's an exciting time. We want to talk about it. Thank you.
You're with the TEA, right?
Oh,
You're with the TEA. Yeah, so the TEA, I know that TEA events is still lots of conversation, so definitely not. Heather, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Heather Gallagher here. I am the former head of technology for this little gathering called Burning Man for almost 20 years. And I left there and went and worked in immersive augmented reality and advised numerous virtual reality companies. I'm now working in immersive entertainment out in the real world, but that also applies to the metaverse. So happy to be here today.
So I think probably the best way to jump in here is to really talk about a bit of a higher level as far as where we see metaverse overall. I think that, again, like I said, you sort of saw this bubble burst. You saw a $10 billion investment sort of washed away by Meta. They swept it under the rug. It must be nice to be able to do that with $10 billion. But I do think that it's worth noting where the metaverse currently stands, and how do you perceive it in its current role today. So.
I think just like the emerging technologies, it's always fun riding the Gartner hype cycle. So having gone down with our hands up during the trough of disillusionment, kind of coming up to seeing what's the next gen of some of these capabilities. So right now, I'm sitting within our region of San Bernardino, Riverside County. There's a lot of logistics, supply chain companies. So really, the industrial metaverse is something with larger platforms like Siemens and other industrial platforms are really leading in terms of productivity and using it as a tool. Then we see, of course, on the media and entertainment side, from Second Life to Roblox to all of these activities, still more engagement, and it's really just kind of that evolution kind of working back up to increase brand engagement and, again, an experience.
Well, I think to some benefit, I think the hype cycle was addressed by Zuckerberg. The overemphasis and lack of delivering a value proposition hurt the whole notion of what the metaverse was. But I think it's also benefited in moving beyond a lot of real work being done behind the scenes. So Heather will talk about what she's done with Burning Man. But there are a lot of other projects that are out there that are in development right now that are moving forward. We can see, obviously, Disney moving forward with Epic, right? I think they're really going to be, yesterday, Gabriel and I spoke a little bit about, there's not been a transcendent experience in the metaverse yet that kind of delivers on the value, utility, value proposition, entertainment component. And I believe we're kind of hoping that this Disney step will lead other businesses to kind of re-engage the space and create a real use case.
Sure. The metaverse went on a wild ride when somebody tried to sort of co-opt the term. I'll just leave that there for a very specific platform. But the metaverse has been, evolving since the early 90s when it was introduced as a concept. Louis just talked about what Disney will be building, with the idea of both a real world park and a parallel virtual park. And this intersection and the combination of the digital environments as well as the real life is really what the metaverse has grown to today. Is and this is where the really interesting intersections and innovations is now how we're interweaving the digital content into human space, like I did with immersive augmented reality, or where we're bringing people into the digital spaces. And you're now seeing that also happening with these human scale digital venues. I actually literally just published an article on this last week. So people are now going to be able to share experiences across these platforms, the real life one and the digital one, and exchange experiences and goods in those different dimensions. And the ability to tap into new and existing audiences that are only comfortable through the screens is a brilliant idea, especially when it's now meshed with real life participation.
Well, we talk about a lot about. There have been a few mentions now about entertainment, about immersive experiences that extend beyond the physical realm into the virtual realm. And so, to put that into the context of casinos, the casino discussion was one that gained a lot of popularity very quickly, simply by virtue of the fact that it's a new marriage of technology, cryptocurrency, decentralization, DeFi, etc. The casino space is, look at trading of goods, services, etc. Do you think that there is a real market for metaverse-based casinos in the same way we have them in the real world, or do you think that really it's the entertainment factor that is going to take much more of a central role? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. It might be too early to tell in terms of that literal translation, as we've seen other kind of efforts in terms of online sports bettings or things like that to shift the dynamic. I think what we've heard from the way Agua Caliente has shown to kind of have that vision of trying things to see to get people in here, it maybe is more of an entertainment focused initiative to be able to reach out to audiences, to be able to have capabilities here that, again, leave a lasting impression that could directly translate to the consumption of other services that are here. But maybe too early to tell in terms of a direct translation into gambling actually in the metaverse. But in the future, kind of like with volumetric, with these experiences going further, potentially you could be and join and have that social experience that you can only get because it is a holodeck that's here, or some other kind of investment that is larger than you would have at home or behind your screen. So again, that immersive but social aspect is still really, really important.
I think it's a combination of brand and experience that's a differentiator. When you're competing with DraftKings and others, that's going to be a challenge. You're going to create the value offering, the value proposition, the differentiator. And I think obviously, as Gabriel just mentioned, volumetric sports is about to explode. We kind of got into that in that kind of sports metaverse area. So it's a question of how does the brand translate itself? How can they create an offering that has utility, function, application, and entertainment value to create memory? And I think that really gives it this offering. I don't know, my opinion is creating a digital twin of a casino on its own is not enough. It's really got to be something that has an application. Heather's done with digital Burning Man, and she could talk about that, but art creation in real time in that way. And at the Tribeca Film Festival, for instance, they have a museum of art that's engaged in parallel to the existing.
And Heather, actually, if you could also expand as you answer the question just on that virtual Burning Man experience too.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to disagree a little bit with Lewis because the casinos, by the way, I've spent expensive time in Vegas and have actually launched an immersive art show in Vegas, and also did spend time in virtual Burning Mans. But casinos are looking to diversify their experiences to attract families, to attract more foot traffic, to bring a broader audience into the doors, because the money's not just in gambling, no offense, but it's also in the food and beverage and having excellent tenants and the entire experience. So that's why shows are such a hit. So in a way, casinos are becoming theme parks. Granted, I'm most familiar with the Vegas casinos. And having these virtual environments just like the physical ones, full of art and places to explore, as well as some commerce or gambling, is a natural extension. People are doing all kinds of things in online platforms or virtual platforms. Some of the major gaming engines, traditional kind of shooter adventure games, they have entire areas where people don't go play the like shoot zombies portion, but they're gathering for major concerts. They are sharing experiences with each other. Millions and millions who don't want to shoot things, but want to go hang out with their friends. So it's a natural extension that if there's cool experiences or things that people can share and do together, they love playing poker, they love doing all these things together, that there's a way now to extend all the dimensions of a casino experience into this virtual format.
I see that Kyle was just able to join us. So Kyle, welcome. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. And,
Thank you. I've been in the waiting room listening to you and watching you, so I've been able to keep up. This is great.
So Kyle, just to catch you up, some of the stuff that we've been discussing so far have been obviously what happened, what felt first when it came to the discussions around the metaverse. But I'll jump in with the question that you were just covering, which is what does the casino experience look like, and how does the casino experience differ when we're talking about the metaverse experience and transcending from the physical casino world to the virtual one?
What's that? We're all like, I think 3 degrees or 4 degrees apart from each other in this. My sense of it is we're still in a huge moment of transition. The metaverse is essentially all verses combined, all platforms combined, and it gives it more depth and flexibility. But we had a conversation yesterday in terms of casinos. While people can have casino experiences at home and online, what we're looking at is how to make the casino still the destination, as Heather brought up. Food and beverage, shows. If you really want to enhance the income, and I think that the opportunity here is not to rush into it, but not to slow down either, but to look at how environments can be created specific to the destination. That Heather, yesterday I said something about like sort of a Pikachu overlay on a virtual reality. It's just as a way to articulate it, so that you could have a very personal experience in a casino. You could even have a layered experience in a casino with other people of like minds. You would have to wrap that game in and find maybe some way to even monetize that. It's not there yet, but I think the technology is there, and we're really in a moment where it's still kind of boiling and cooling, and it's the wildest idea that can be accomplished if we focus on it, if we address it. So that's my answer is don't. It's nothing of valuable is already on the shelf. That we have to create the environments we want to create and drive the technology in that direction. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I'm sure everybody on this panel has read Snow Crash, and so obviously the idea behind Snow Crash is it's this fully immersive, separate reality from the physical one. But I think based off of some of the discussion here and some of the comments here, it seems like what the mistake was, or maybe what the overhype was trying to do that, trying to replicate what Snow Crash described, which is a completely separate virtual world that exists dissociated from the physical one. Because what it sounds a lot like what we're talking about is how do we sort of marry the virtual experience to the real world one? And so I think the next question that I just want to cover is where do you sort of see that next evolution as we start to find that balance in between metaverse and the physical experience?
That balance might come from actually being able to, if you implement the systems of engagement, you're then able to maybe safely try these experiences without really adjusting and making a big gamble in terms of what your systems of record are. So even early on, when we were looking, Jet Propulsion Lab trying to bring more people in to watch the landing of rovers, we worked with Lincoln Labs to create what looked like it was a Second Life version of what it would be like, but it was just to start that engagement and then to figure out how we can continue to leverage it. Of course, the bet wasn't completely in that, where that's the only way you can watch a landing, but it allowed this additional pipeline into an audience that maybe would have otherwise been overlooked. And then building on that is just how do you continue to do that? So today, again, it's riding those waves and intersection of technology, where we're looking at the next generation of maybe it's wearables that help to, again, pop in, where it's not everybody constantly wearing them, but we're going to go and experience and try something that, again, brings us to this location.
And to extend on that, I mean, and again, I think similar to Heather's point, which I think, I want to clarify. I think the issue is I don't believe creating a digital twin at any facility is really where the value is. That when we create an experience like hopefully Disney's going to do with Epic, is that when you create a destination with purpose, with actual utility, which doesn't exist in many of these environments right now, with a real entertainment value to dwell on that, to go to a show, to interact, to play together, and that there's a real value proposition in that experience, is where it's going to drive the opportunity. Understanding your brand, articulating and substantial intent into the whole.
Heather.
So I'm going to add to this. This is actually a bit what my article in Arch Daily was about. And the premise is that the metaverse is now not just limited to things we can experience through a little 2D screen or a headset. If I was building a casino from scratch today, I would 100% plan for an immersive digital environment that people can go to in groups. It can have rotating shows, different content, interactivity. It can be its own ticketed experience, art things. Also, I would be working on very small, maybe a couple of people could play, because these environments can also be interactive and gamified. I mean, you have esports, but for several friends to go into a small booth or a room and have a slot machine or a game that surrounds them, that they're gambling on it, like this is the future. So you can create digital environments that have metaverse-like qualities to them that people can go into, and it doesn't necessarily mean everybody's in a separate world with the headsets and everything's just like the physical space. This is a whole new emerging tool that people should be tapping into as much as they can.
Kyle.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities here. I'd like to see what Heather's concept looks like, and it is, for me, this is where I get, most of my experience is live immersion, live theater, that kind of thing. And I'm a stickler for narrative arc and that kind of thing. So in some ways, I guess I'm Luddite at this point, but, and I love technology. So looking at how this where is that bridge between having screens in the same room as live people interacting with the same content or experience, and what's the next step? When does it become really real? For me, for an experience to be heavily connected, there needs to be pheromonal interaction. And we don't have that. We have haptics, and haptics are getting a little bit more nuanced, and I don't know the answer to this. I'm just excited that we're in a space where in the next few moments, this is going to materialize. I don't have the answer, but I'm like, these are the conversations that need to be had with, people from other planets like Heather, who have the vision really. And then let's make it. I don't know what it's going to be. So I don't have an answer for you. I just know that like what was predicted in Snow Crash is now here. What was the science fiction writers have been ahead of us now they're always about 4 decades ahead. So here we are, the technology is streaming at us, so to speak, and we can make it what we want to make it. So for me, I'd start at, what do I want to have happen? What do I want to have the people experience that they can't experience anywhere else? Whether it's connected to the casino, but the payoff, for me, there needs to be a payoff in being there live. It's like televising a stadium show. I mean, it's great to see it on TV, but there's nothing like being in the audience. So how can you create an experience that differentiates from being remote when everybody, like the default is remote, but you want to get them in the casino, or at least you want to bring the revenue in? Now, these are bigger conversations than my experience, but these are questions I ask because I want to do it. I want to do it. I've been...
Kyle, you actually raised a good point, which I think is worth noting, which is the revenue question. Because if we're going to get down to it as to why there hasn't been more investment, especially on the casino side, but also in a lot of other spaces, the revenue question, the path to revenue, The path to revenue in a regulated market obviously becomes a huge question. But I think, and so revenue being one hurdle, another thing that I think is pretty common here is that the perception of direction, the perception of next steps. I think if I asked each of you individually, each of you would give me an entirely different answer. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is ask each of you individually as far as the hurdles go to seeing those next steps. What do you see as the current major hurdles to overcome beyond just paths to revenue?
Well, even you mentioned snow crash and stuff like that. So now one is obviously taking the step forward and trying to then have that foundation and building off of an open metaverse, but transactional as well. So some of those are the things that are going to have to align with legislation before you're able to really kind of open up. But I think the theme was being prepared for these changes or these integration points where you actually could be able to leverage and turn on what could be a pipeline that is still TBD, but leveraging the tooling and the platforms that are modern that would enable.
I think it's multiple paths happening simultaneously. You've got to think in terms of a interconnected ecosystem. You have to be, from what Gabriel was saying, there are questions about this kind of interaction with the metaverse over state lines or internationally. From a regulatory perspective, it has to be explored. From an audience perspective, and to what Heather's referencing is how can you weight or swimmer diver experiences that you're looking at from an augmentation and development standpoint and what that offering is. And as a business model, you've got to look at that in terms of, I think, making small investments, exploring and iterating quickly before you make a large capex so that you can explore different ways to engage your brand and your audience, to monetize that, explore and test that, and then find ways where you can scale that up and you find something that
Go ahead, Heather.
I'm going to encourage everybody to think out of the slot machine for a second. While I understand how fully precious and the important restrictions around gambling are, there are massive opportunities in integrating with various game experiences that don't have to depend on gambling. Again, ticket sales to hosted shows are very popular. The Van Gogh thing that most people have heard of, millions and millions of tickets around the world. Also, if you really want to see, and the generation who are now going to want to come to casinos grew up playing video games. Okay, if you really want to see how the kids today are spending money, go watch a teenager playing Fortnite. Okay, they are spending huge amounts of money for virtual costumes and fake weapons, and it's a literal economic ecosystem on the platforms where people are there doing things together, and that is money that could potentially be managed, that doesn't fall into the gambling arena, but that is still a huge opportunity.
I would add, that's a great point, Heather. We don't realize that the metaverse really exists in isolated pockets already. Like Assassin's Creed, League of Legends, or those components. There was already kind of exchange of information, currency, and things and battles and whatnot taking place. The metaverse that we're trying to allude to here is kind of an interconnected system of metaverses where you'll be able to interoperably take your assets and move from one world to the other in an interconnected format where maybe your file is unique, but then goes into another world to migrate those uses and capabilities.
Well, and you mentioned a good point, which is the question of interoperability. So the question of interoperability, there we go. So the question of interoperability is one that has been a major issue as far as connecting these metaverses, largely because a lot of the developers, a lot of the creators and building up sandboxes and things like that want to enforce them, which should be some purpose. And Kyle, you want to go ahead?
Oh, no, I just was scratching my neck.
No. The question of what some of those hurdles are.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
The question, going back to the last question about what some of the hurdles are as far as seeing some of that mass adoption of the metaverse by business.
Sorry.
Can't hear it?
Sorry.
Just one of the things, as we've seen again with other technologies and lowering the barrier to entry, where then, what are the standards that are going to emerge? They're still undefined. So there will be, what are some of the web standards that might unlock the ability to do this without an app? There's techniques already, but just following down that path is in that accessibility. So there will be, as it evolves, these kind of groups that are coming together, and we'll see again the VHS beta kind of battle. But as it extends to potential file formats or the transportation layer across these various experiences.
I think the one last point that I'd like to touch on relates really to more of the business preparedness side of things. And I think the reason why I want to bring this up is because when you saw the metaverse and Web3 development really taking hold and becoming the singular conversation, kind of similar to how AI has become the singular conversation today, there was this almost mass panic by businesses that they weren't ready to start selling product in the metaverse. That they didn't know how they were supposed to monetize, but they knew they had to have a plan, which led to a lot of sunk investments into planning or preparedness, or even development of products that can go into that. And so I think now that as you mentioned, Gabriel, coming out of this Gartner hype cycle on Anthropic disillusionment, we're at a point now where we can more realistically develop an outlook. And so my question to close out today are just your thoughts on what the future holds for the metaverse as it relates, whether it's to the casino industry, to the entertainment industry, youth entertainment, what have you, and whether or not it's something that all business needs to be prepared to adapt to, or if it's really something where you want the market to develop and then you can decide whether or not it's something you can enter into. And so, Louis, if you want to start us off.
My opinion of the metaverse is similar to our websites were. There is this notion that when the internet started, people didn't necessarily know how to engage it or address it. And now it's absolutely fundamental that you have a website for your company to be data credible. My opinion is that in 5 to 10 years' time, if you don't have a presence in the metaverse and you don't have a representation there, that you'll be completely lost. That you have to be there just as you have a website now. You'll have a metaverse site that you've articulated and you are presenting your offering, your business, and your entertainment value there as well.
Heather.
I completely agree with Louis. It is kind of like this is now the website of today. It's also similar to artificial intelligence. There's a generation who are coming of age who are used to online digital platforms and 3D technology, and people who are now using AIs to prompt. That's a whole other panel. And as they come of age, they're going to expect and be comfortable with that. And the people who don't adopt because of industry inertia or major players who might be held on to the status quo are going to be challenging to attract those audiences.
Yes. In fact, in Saudi Arabia, it's a very strong push to have the most advanced technology available long before they need it or can use it. But even as basic as ticket sales, marketing, they are going to be ready for whatever happens. And I think to all your points, and I thought in my head, and finally, fax numbers will disappear from business cards. But it's like people are going to, at a point, if you aren't up to speed on the technology and ready for whatever shift takes place, ready for the next upgrade to make you more accessible, then you're going to be out of business. You may as well, move.
Yeah, and probably just like, again, previous technologies, when we stopped talking about the industry term, it really just has infiltrated, mass markets. So as we stop, again, it's just the expectation that we are metaversal or immersive and interactive, that it exists and is easy, that as the default is likely when we're seeing those ripples of adoption.
And so with that in mind, from an adoption standpoint, because obviously, I think the one thing that I think is abundantly clear here is that there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving directions for each one of those pieces, which I think it makes it exciting. But in a lot of cases, especially as business is still trying to adapt from one thing to the next, and things are moving at speeds that haven't before been seen as far as technology and innovation goes. So I guess the last piece that I'd like to leave everybody off with is maybe a question of, on that preparedness front, what business, casinos or otherwise, can begin doing now so that they are ready for that sort of that slow but very significant seismic shift. So Gabriel, go ahead.
Again, just principally being prepared, setting up that systems of engagement so that you can try things. It's not exclusive to bringing on metaverse or just esports, but overall the theme is bringing people through to this physical destination to consume the rest of the services and entertainment hub. So having that method to be able to try things, learn from it on an operational method before you're making the CapEx is likely an approach.
I think it's great to kind of, even understanding that, just kind of speaking to people like here on the panel, get together, build an awareness, and build a community, so that you can start to dip your toe in or learn from what others are doing, to extend that at a lower capex level, become aware, build your team, and kind of, have resources available to you, that you can begin to extend that when the time is right.
Sure. I would say, there's a couple safe places to start dabbling. One is definitely around innovating on game design. I mean, there are already games in a casino floor where there are multiple people playing and there's an entire wall of a game, shown. I would say just start with maybe extending that into making it a little bit more of an immersive experience and start maybe leading the way with that. And it kind of just as innovating on the product you already have. Another place would be augmented reality. Almost every casino that I've been to has an app and a frequent participant card or something you're using to track your usage. There are fun and pretty lightweight ways to start bringing an additional element of kind of gameplay across your existing platforms. And if for some reason it doesn't work, you haven't sunk billions of dollars into an entirely new construction project. And also, again, going back to the digital environments, there is probably some conference space somewhere that is really not really useful for anything else, or it doesn't really get booked with the big conferences. Why not turn that into a place that can be a dynamic showcase with digital content in it?
And I have two things. One is the ideas for your casino are actually already in your head. You just haven't found them yet. But the people who will come up with the best ideas are already in your employ, are already there. You don't need to go buy them. I mean, you need a Heather, you need people to help implement them. But just remember, you have the ideas, and it's critical that leadership, CEOs, SVPs at all levels, learn this. Don't try to buy it. Like all of us, I know Lewis is. I've been taking different courses every time I can. I'm using it as I can learn it so that I know what it is. And as a producer, it may not be a lighting designer and a costume designer, but a producer, they know what it is they want and they know how to get it from the people that can deliver it. Same with this. I had a client once that used to have his emails printed out. It's like, you don't get yourself in that position because it's going to move too fast. You need to know what it is you're using. And if you know what it is and you're wandering through your casino, one of these things you're going to go, oh, you do right here? They'll come from you because you know your customers and you know your business. So know the tools so that when you want to have something happen, you know where to go and what's possible. That's just my advice is don't get caught out and behind, because you'll end up wasting money on somebody that it doesn't give you what you actually want. Anyway, that's my advice is learn this stuff. Not that you have to be an expert in it, but just be familiar with it. Right, Heather?
Kyle, Heather, Lewis, Gabriel, I want to thank you all for joining me. Thank you, our panelists today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Good to see you. Good to see you, Lewis.
You too, Heather. Catch up soon.
Yeah. We totally are over too.
Perfect. Take care.
Still like Mickey Mouse.
Testing.
Oh, wonderful. Are they going to represent you? So that's their always anything to do with it.
This one's making people sound like Mickey Mouse. Right. Yeah, we'll just use these. Okay. let me just get this stopped. Okay.